I read somewhere that anything that changes how you feel, emotionally, is potentially addictive.
Oh.
Because addiction really is a heart issue.
Wow.
I know that,
like that.
Nowadays, drug addiction especially, but also behavioral addiction, like food or sex,
emotional,
etc., are called a disease of the brain.
Really?
And it is true that there's a syndrome where the structures of the brain change.
Hey everybody, my name is Angie Murenga. You're watching Just Angie. It's Murenga Monday, where we discuss all things governance to do with self and to do with leadership and to do with others. And today I have a guest. His name is Albert Muraya. He's a childhood friend as well, but he's an addiction counselor and a life coach, and I'll let him say hi and introduce himself.
Yes. Good day. My name is Albert Muraya, as Pastor Angie has said. We are childhood friends. I work as an addiction counselor. I'm also a life coach.
Welcome to Murenga Monday.
Thank you.
When you say addiction counselor, the reason I invited you for this particular segment is I was thinking it's the new year. So a lot of people make new year resolutions in January. A lot of them have to do with addiction, different kinds of addiction. In our particular nation, I think alcohol is a big one. So we have people who are functioning alcoholics, people who are alcoholics and can't deal, but the others, a lot of people are they just go with the flow, and it could be even drugs. Now I think people have progressed to drugs. In our time and season, it was a lot of alcohol. But it's sometimes an addiction, because I remember when I had an addiction, it was very frustrating. Especially, I think I went along in life without knowing it was an addiction. I thought this is just the way things are.
Yeah,
it was the normal flow. It was our culture.
Just life.
This is life.
Yeah.
But when it started bugging me, and especially the one I struggled with the most was smoking, it was very frustrating, because I'm trying to quit and I can't quit. It's like I have this thought in my head that I need to stop doing this, but I can't. Up to today, and I'm sure I think it was supernatural. Sometimes I don't believe that it actually went away.
You were able to quit. And
that's what I think. I'm glad that I don't know whether that I experienced that, because then I understand. There's an element of understanding, because I'm doing what I'm not supposed to do, and it's frustrating, but I do want to stop.
Yeah. Addiction is funny like that. It really is bondage.
Yes.
Somebody is trapped in something they started doing experimentally for fun, because others were doing it. And no addict intends to become an addict.
No.
You're just, as you say, hanging out, chilling out, living life. As technology has changed, as life has changed, culture has changed, the things people get addicted to are broadening.
They're widening.
Although in Kenya, the primary addiction is still alcohol.
It's still alcohol.
And it's probably the one that costs us the most as a society also.
Yeah.
I'm really shocked at the number of clients I have who are also porn addicts.
Really?
Yeah.
But you see, that's an addiction you can hide.
Well, this is it. Yeah, it's very private, secret. And unlike, say, alcohol, which people say, we started out socializing, we're just having fun.
We're trying to be cool.
Yeah, all that. You can't say that about
pornography,
porn, or some of the others. Addiction to prescription medication is also quite widespread, especially within the medical community.
Really?
Yeah, obviously because they have access
to the medicines.
Yeah, and as you've heard, in America it's an epidemic now.
It's an epidemic.
Yeah. So I read somewhere that anything that changes how you feel, emotionally, is potentially addictive.
Oh.
Because addiction really is a heart issue.
Wow.
I know that,
like that.
Nowadays, drug addiction especially, but also behavioral addiction, like food or sex, etc., are called a disease of the brain.
Really?
And it is true that there's a syndrome where the structures of the brain change because of whether the chemicals or the behavior. You know, our behavior hardwires our brain. How we learn, how we remember, our brain structures are really wiring and rewiring themselves, the nerve cells. And so when we get into habits, we are hardwiring our brain, any sort of habit. So if, you know, if somebody struggles, say, to exercise, but gets over the initial struggle and it becomes routine, their brain is hardwired.
It goes into routine.
Yes, and makes it easier and easier to do. In fact, it becomes, you require less energy in terms of emotional energy to do the thing. So in this way, anything we find pleasurable has that, you know, there's a risk.
Or trigger.
Yes. So with chemicals in particular, because they're very powerful on the brain, the brain trains itself to depend on that chemical. And so something that started out as fun, no one had any intention of becoming hooked to it, find that they become hooked. And it's, talk about it, AA talks about it being a baffling disease because it confuses a person.
Yes.
You know, you make all the resolutions, we're in January now, people are making New Year's resolutions. They have all this resolve to be different, and they find themselves falling back into the same pattern. And with chemicals in particular, the brain messages itself that it needs this thing like dawa, like medicine. There is at the beginning of addiction, what happens is that the brain has a normal range of functioning. So when we're having fun, like if you've watched children, say, having fun, there are neurotransmitters, these are chemicals in the brain that do the messaging, that are released or changed in some way to create that experience of enjoyment. And this is a normal sort of human experience that we all have. And if you think of it, if this is a brain operating at normal, when a child is having fun, the brain might be elevated a little bit, but this is within the normal range of function of the brain to be able to control that degree of enjoyment. And equally, if somebody is not happy, they're sad about something, they've been annoyed, maybe they feel a little bit sad, a little bit depressed, so the function of the brain goes down a little bit. But you know, this sort of range is within the normal ability in terms of behavior, in terms of our social relationships to manage. But then when you use a chemical that changes how the brain works, and we call them psychotropic because of that. It sends the brain up all the way. It's too much. This surge is just too much for the brain to handle. Because the brain is very adaptive,
it adapts.
What it does is when it sees that this thing is being introduced regularly, it changes its normal range of functioning down to here.
Really?
And this happens, the rate at which this happens will vary on the potency of the drug, how frequently it's being used, how old the brain is. The younger the brain, the more this happens.
The more receptive.
The younger the brain is the last organ to develop in the human being. The brain is fully developed at about age 25. Whereas, you know, with the onset of puberty,
everything else is developing.
Yes. So when the brain realizes it's this being sent high too often, it adjusts its sort of what you call homeostasis. It's functioning at rest, a little bit down. And so soon what the person discovers, and so when they use, then the brain comes up to what was previously the normal range. But you see the surge is coming down starting from down here rather than from here. And so this is why people experience that they need to use more and more of the drug
to get the same
to achieve the desired effect. And this is called tolerance. And tolerance is central to any addiction. So people experience tolerance even with prescription medication, which is why it becomes dangerous. You experience tolerance with behaviors. So it could be eating certain foods that create that pleasure. It could be activity, we mentioned sex and porn, but gambling, internet, thrill seeking, getting an adrenaline rush,
High.
anything that gives you a high, your brain will adjust. And so you begin to achieve that tolerance. And so you need to use more and more of the thing. And of course, that is what leads to now the other problems, because you're high all the time, you can't function normally, you have all the social costs that are associated with addiction to you as an individual, but to your social relationships, and so forth.
I want to stop you there,
Yeah.
so that when we come back next week,
Yeah.
we start from the social and from the costs
Okay.
of addiction. But also I know that we're going to discuss is how do we break that cycle, because I think we're two of us sitting here who've broken different addiction cycles, so it's possible. Wow, so that's Mwenenchi Monday. See you next Monday. We're talking about addictions. God bless.
God bless.